Public Schools this May 26th to order. If you would like to make a public comment, there are forms in the back desk. If you just fill them out and bring them to our lovely secretary, Sarah, so that we will know your name to call out. At this time, we will stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Sarah, can you do roll call?
Ms. Hamilton, Mrs. Simonetti, Ms. Williams, Ms. Sharp, Mr. Dobies, Mr. Reddy, Ms. Acton.
Here. Agenda item number 4, approval of agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda as written? Any deliberation? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. At this time, we will turn it over to Superintendent Patterson for the superintendent's report.
Thank you, President Acton. I'm going to keep my remarks brief because we have a presentation from our MASB representative. So I'd like to invite Ms. Kimberly May to the podium at this time. We've been working diligently this year. This was one of our big goals, to develop a strategic plan. So there's been many months going into this work, and we had a culminating experience to put together the plan that you're going to see today. So I know our Board of Education had an opportunity to participate, our cabinet, administration, a lot of community members. And so we welcome Kimberly here to share this presentation with us today. So thank you so much for traveling back to Jackson again. We got her some orange and black swag, so she wants to be all in for JPS and has been a great partner to work with in this process. So thanks for coming alongside of us and for sharing our final product here today.
All right, let's try this again. Good evening, and thank you so much for having me back. I have truly enjoyed my time in Jackson with both the board, superintendent, as well as the supporting staff. So thank you all so much for having me. And as Superintendent Patterson shared, I am here tonight to share the work that we've completed around the data-driven strategic planning process. And I will ultimately share with you, the board, the vision, mission, and belief statement, along with the goals. And I will ask that you all vote on those this evening, but you will also see the goals as well as the objectives, okay? So to get us started, I gotta press this a little harder. There we go. So this timeline shows that we worked on the strategic plan for 6 months from start to finish. So starting in October, there was a board presentation. I do believe Debbie Stair, my colleague, presented for the board. And then in November, the board just voted to have MASB facilitate this work. I met with Jeremy, Superintendent Patterson. I believe we initially talked in November, December to set some dates for our data collection and stakeholder input meetings. And so those took place January and February of 2026. And what that was were times I came into the district to meet with students, staff, community members. And then we also had a meeting that took place on the virtually. We also opened the survey, the input survey, where that, again, community members, students, staff had the opportunity to provide input on this process. In April, we hosted the retreat, which was all day on a Saturday. I believe it was April 18th. And then on April 27th, we had the implementation workshop. During that workshop, let me go back. The retreat was an 8-hour day. That day, we worked really hard on developing mission, vision, belief statement, as well as the goals. On April 27th, worked with Superintendent Patterson and his selected team to begin to talk about what the implementation looks like. What are the priority objectives for each of those goals? And then here we are in May with me presenting this final report to you all. Not pressing hard enough. There we go. Okay. So, stakeholder input. This is where I talked a little bit about. I came into the district and I met with students and staff as well as administrators. And the purpose of the stakeholder input is to provide an opportunity, obviously, for input from all stakeholders, as well as to gauge the values and the perceptions of the community. We use this to gather the data to really talk about what are the strengths of the district, what are areas for improvement, what are some of the barriers that people recognize, and then what is a vision? So when we say what is a vision, what does a community, what do the staff, what do students, how do they want to see JPS? How do they currently see JPS, and what would they like to see from JPS in the future? With the strategic planning input sessions, so between the in-person sessions and the online opportunities, there were 497 responses. So that is excellent. I will say many of the responses were students. So when we talk about JPS All In, I look at that and I think about the fact that that's your future, right? And so not only are they committed to their time in JPS now, but they're committed to making JPS even better, right? Understanding that they are a part of this community. The planning team retreat, as I said, it took place on April 18th. During this time, we went over the strategic planning process, the timelines. We did an activity called an environmental scan, where we talked about things that were on the horizon in education, things that were emerging, as well as things that were developed, things that were kind of already in place, and then finally those things that were shifting away in education. We reviewed the current vision and mission and belief statements. We also talked about the stakeholder input data. We took a look at demographic and district data. During that time, we looked at 5 other districts that are nearby and similar to JPS to compare. And so when I say that, we took a look at Ypsilanti Community Schools, Holt Community Schools, trying to remember them all. Lansing, I believe, was one. Northview. And I think I'm missing one. I'm looking at Superintendent Patterson. Was it Monroe? Maybe. Okay. Lincoln. It was Lincoln. We took a look at those districts. Then we also established the strategic goal areas, the statements, as well as the key objectives, and an overview of the next steps. One thing that I would like to point out that we did that I think is extremely important is that we also took into consideration the partnership agreement. So there were 14 points from that partnership agreement that JPS participated in and experienced success, right? Met all of the goals in that. And so what we did not want to do was say, okay, we did this, so we're gonna push this to the side, and now let's look at a strategic plan. We really looked at those 14 points. How did we get here? And then what from there do we need to continue to make JPS great? Oops, I pressed too hard. So here, on the day of April 18th, we had 37 dedicated participants, and they are all listed here. And when I say dedicated, we started at 8:30 and we did not end until 4:30. And we pretty much, I don't want to even say we took a lunch. It was like a 15-minute lunch, right? It wasn't a full 30-minute lunch as promised. So, but we were able to get a lot done. There were really great conversations. And as you can see, there were both parents, staff members, administrators, your board was present. So everyone worked extremely hard on that Saturday, and I thank you for that. So retreat outcomes. This is the mission and vision statement, which may look very familiar to you all. The mission statement, we will bring our community together to create a culture of academic excellence and workforce readiness. There was a small group that spent a great deal of time talking about this mission, trying to define words and making sure that there was a central understanding of the words academic excellence and workforce readiness. And with that, the decision was made to keep this as the mission, not to change it at all. The same happened with the vision of Jackson Public Schools. We envision a community where all students become lifelong learners. So one of the things that I would like to just lift as we talk about this process is that it was important to spend time to really talk about the mission and the vision, to really determine, is this really what we want to do at JPS? Is this what we really are doing? And I think the value in that at the end of the day, when it was the decision was made to keep the mission and the vision the same, was that everyone agreed with the fact that this is the work we do every day. This is how we do our work. This is what we show up for, right? So that was really, I thought, really nice to see. And like I said, there was a lot of time spent on both the mission and the vision. Jackson did not have a belief statement or statements. And so there was time spent developing a belief statement. And here it is. All students can achieve excellence with support from a strong community. So when you think about Jackson All In, when I think about all of the stakeholders that were present that particular day, as well as the stakeholders that I met with for the input survey, this really shines through as a belief statement. And I think you all did an excellent job coming up with this belief statement. Your retreat outcomes, there were 5 goals were developed. The goals are in categories. So there's academics and programs. And so you can see that first goal is to improve academic outcomes for all students. Your second goal was around the culture and climate. So to create a culture and learning environment. And so this goal reads to create a safe, supportive school culture by improving behavior systems and expanding mental health support to increase student engagement and success. The next is around community engagement, improved community visibility through consistent engagement activities across the district. The next one was around personnel and leadership, improved staff retention and wellness is the goal here. And finally, the last category was in finance and operations, and here to be financially stable and fiscally responsible. So while those goals may sound broad, we get into the objectives, and that's where the work happens. And this is where we had the implementation workshop on April 27th. And here we again reviewed the process. We went over the implementation workshop handouts. We reviewed the mission, vision, and belief statements. And we do this just in case there's any cleanup that needs to happen, not to take away from the work that had already taken place, but just to say sometimes we wordsmith in that space. But in this particular case, we did not do anything different. Next, we reviewed the goal statements. Again, same thing, just to wordsmith those goals and also just to make sure like, hey, this is something that we can do, because this is where Superintendent Patterson and his team really starts to dig into those goals. And then we start to determine potential objectives that coincide with those goals. And we'll finalize 3 objectives for each goal statement that could be accomplished in the first year. And I'll get into those next. We also reviewed action planning for selected objectives, and then we reviewed the strategic planning monitoring process. This particular day, I believe we started at 10. We were supposed to end at 3, and I believe we didn't end till like 3:30 or 3:45. So again, the team really dug in, working really hard. And I have to say, many of the team members were doing double duty on that particular day because it was also a PD day. So when I say doing double duty, they were coming in, participating wholeheartedly, and then going back to run and do their PD pieces, and then coming back to participate in this. And so I lift that again, just to talk about the dedication that the staff has to this district and to the students in the district. So here's your first goal with the objectives. Again, as I explained, the first goal area is around academics and programs. You can see the goal statement, improve academic outcomes for all students. And then there are 3 priority objectives: to establish a refined MTSS systems to provide academic support and interventions and reduce chronic absenteeism. This may sound very familiar to you all because this came directly from those 14 points, right? This is the area that you all were truly working on in that particular plan. Second objective, to provide ongoing professional development and coaching. And then lastly, to increase and expand offerings such as life skills, foreign language, trades, and AP courses. And just a reminder, the board is only going to approve tonight the goals, the mission, the vision, the goals, the mission, vision, and belief statement. And I'm just sharing the objectives that coincide with the goals. So again, in area 2, culture and learning environment, you can see the goal statement there. This one is around behavior systems and expanding mental health support to increase student engagement and success. In your priority objectives here, there are 4: to achieve district-wide consistent implementation of PBIS and restorative practices with fidelity checks. So something that is happening, but how do we just ensure that it's happening everywhere, right? Next, to decrease office referrals and suspensions, increase access for all students and families to school and community-based mental health services, and lastly, to encourage participation of stakeholders in community events. Area 3, around personnel and leadership. So again, this is to improve staff retention and wellness. We talked a lot about this first one, but leveraging data-driven staffing criteria to right-size building administrators. And so this one is really about making sure we have the right amount of building administrators in a building based upon the needs of that building. Next, we talked about using data-driven insights to prioritize staff professional development and well-being initiatives. Develop written processes for conducting staff exit interviews, analyzing data, and creating action steps to address identified trends. And lastly, it was to explore options to a 5-day work week. And so there was a lot of conversation around when we talked about what's going away, right? That whole idea of necessarily working 5 days a week, would that be a hybrid day? Just taking a look at what those options are, right? That's what that last one is, just to explore. That was something that came up through the environmental scan. Goal 4, communications and community engagement. Again, this one is to improve community visibility. And so the objectives here are to plan and publish a monthly calendar of events for community engagement. Continue the monthly staff celebrations, to a systematic process for a task force to analyze student and staff exit interview data. So one of the things that was pretty clear in the input survey was that exit interviews were happening, but then nobody really knew what was happening from the exit interviews, right? So how do we address that? And then this last one is, again, to establish clear communication model of the monthly progress of the student and staff exit interviews. And goal 5, operations and finance, to be financially stable and fiscally responsible. One of the big things that rose was to analyze bus runs to identify savings and efficiencies, to retain current students and effective staff, preventative building maintenance, so that everything isn't a, oh my God, we got to hurry up and do this, right? But like, what are some things that we see are on the horizon that we need to address? And then to take a look at the semester versus trimester calendar. So as I stated earlier, we're asking for the board to approve the mission statement, the vision statement, belief statement, and the goal statements. Understanding that the objectives, that is the work of Superintendent Patterson and his team. Our recommendations for ensuring success is aligning the strategic plan, with the MyKIP plans. And so we talked about that work while we were doing the strategic planning. Also, aligning the strategic plan with the 2025 through 30 budget and beyond. So thinking about that as a board, when you are approving purchases, ensuring that those purchases align with what is the work in the strategic plan, right? Because they should go hand in hand. Develop and implement a reporting / board monitoring calendar. So what that means is, how will Superintendent Patterson report out on the strategic goals? It shouldn't be we talked about it today, we vote on it today, and then we don't look at them again for another year, right? It really should be that ongoing conversation around this work. Very similar to, I believe, what was done with the 14 points from the partnership plan. Develop and implement action plans for each identified objective. Create opportunities for stakeholder involvement. So again, getting feedback from all stakeholders on some of the objectives. How are they going? How do you just do that temperature check, right? Because you can do the work and think that you're making the gains that you wanted to make, but then you may find out too late that we're not going where we want to go. So sometimes you do those temperature checks to also say, hey, we may have to tweak, not the goal, but the objective. And then finally, schedule a 1-year renewal with MASB, where we come in and we take a look and we talk about the goals and see if there are any goals that we need to tweak. How's that work going? How can we be of additional support? And the final thoughts, and this comes from Debbie Stair, who is the Assistant Director of Leadership Development with MASB. Collaborating with the Jackson Public Schools, the Board of Education, administration, staff, and the entire community really illustrated their level of care for the schools, the community, and most of all, the students. And I believe I have expressed that each time that I've been here. It is quite evident, the care of this community. So again, thank you. And are there any questions?
Acronyms. What's MyKIP plans?
The Michigan Continuous Improvement Process or Protocol Process. It used to be the School Improvement Plan, the School Improvement work.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. This was really good.
Oh,
I
thank
really
you.
appreciate that. Wow, this is really good.
Thank you. And then you all should have received a full summary as well, so you have all of the information to take a look at. All right. Well, thank you. Again, I appreciate the opportunity. Sorry.
Yeah, just say thank you again for coming alongside of us. It was a great process. Like you said, when you're working hard on a Saturday, there was a good vibe that it was good work and not something that we got tied down to. And I'll speak on behalf of Jackson Public Schools that it's so important to have a continued vision that everybody's moving in the same direction. When we did this with our partnership, we didn't focus on one school. We focused on the district as a whole. And that was a valuable lesson. We were very successful because everybody understood the target. The targets didn't change for 3 years, but we continuously had check-ins. And actually one area we didn't hit, but we were able to come back again and fine-tune some things, do things differently, and be more successful. And coming on as superintendent, that's the momentum that I didn't want to lose. Because when you get off a list and you stop being focused and intentional, and having the communication plan is the biggest piece of all. What we learned is everybody's working hard, but everybody doesn't know what everybody else is doing. And to work collectively as a system, that's so important. And so I'm excited to have this plan in place and have the support of the Board of Education coming alongside of us, as well as MASB. And I thank you again for your work. I know you're not going to be here later when we vote, so last opportunity if you have any further questions. But I'm sure we have a direct link to MASB. And Kimberly, we appreciate you so much for coming alongside of us again.
Absolutely. Thank you again. And yes, you do have a direct link. So if you have anything, just text me. Have a great evening, you all.
Thank you, you too.
So before I turn it back over to President Acton to continue on with the consent agenda, I'll keep my comments brief, but I just have to celebrate the class of 2026. We decided to move this board meeting so we don't have one more long day right before graduation, so we could really focus on all those things. And it was just a beautiful week, from baccalaureate to honors to senior sunset to graduation parties. And I appreciate the board's support there. 322 graduates from JPS, South Central Michigan Virtual, Pathways, Jackson High School. And I mean, that stadium was packed, as you saw what I saw. And so kudos again to everyone, the families, the students, the staff. It was a true celebration of our kids entering onto their next journey. And we have at least one graduate here today, staff members. And so it was just a special weekend. And I just wanted to lift that up before I turn it back to President Acton. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Patterson. Now we're on item number 6, consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Any deliberation? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Citizens requesting to address the board. I have Jason Hill.
This one? Oh, okay. Okay. Sorry, I'm a little nervous. I'm here to criticize my employers. I'm here to address the board about something that happened a couple months ago. It's the first time I've been able to make it to a meeting since. But on February 6th, Congressman Tim Walberg hosted a military recruitment event in this very room. And I'm here to voice my extreme disappointment with that. Tim Walberg has used his position of authority to enact, defend, and provide aid to the Israeli genocide in Gaza. He has also supported Israel's encroachments into Lebanon and Syria, and now the U.S. invasion of Iran. The overwhelming civilian death toll in these conflicts is not a bug to Tim, it is a feature. Tim Walberg advocated dropping a nuclear bomb on Gaza. Tim has a clear message. If you're Palestinian, Lebanese, Syrian, or Iranian, he wants you dead. What does it say to what does JPS have to say to students and families who have ties to these regions? That's not all. In a trip to meet Ugandan President Yoweri Museveni, Tim told the president to stand firm in the face of international pressure towards Uganda's new homosexuality law. What is that law, you might be asking? The law states that the normalization of homosexuality is punishable by 20 years in prison. Homosexual acts can be punishable by death. What does JPS have to say to LGBTQ plus students? What are we willing to tolerate? What is the window of acceptable thought? I'm sure this board will agree that our first priority as administrators, teachers, and in my case, coaches, is to keep the students at JPS safe. And I think Tim Walberg's presence here was a compromise of that priority. I am an advocate for free thought and expression. However, a party that welcomes predators and prey is a party for predators. In these halls, student learns about the great villains of history, and we teach them those lessons so that they can learn to see these monsters in real time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. Next is William Hastings.
Okay, just give me a second here. Good evening, board. Kind of glad I was able to make it tonight. I was very interested in hearing the presentation from Kimberly May about the strategic plan. A lot of good food for thought and discussion there, and it kind of feeds into my comment, which really isn't directly about the strategic plan. So one of the agenda items, and you have a very full agenda tonight, is looking at some changes to your Neola language, in this case involving the sex education curriculum at JPS, specifically changing to add these terms to the sex ed curriculum to teach gender identity, gender expression, and sexual orientation. And I think this is problematic for a number of reasons. This isn't just a minor revision. I think it's a radical departure from what the current law, which is part of Michigan state law, stipulates what the purpose of sex ed is meant to be, which is to be based in abstinence-based sex education. So when you start to dig into it, I think sexual orientation is pretty clear, and that's not even something that's really in dispute or anything like that. But when you start to dig into the terms gender identity and gender expression, it's really a deep dive, because that encompasses a whole lot of different things. A lot of things that I think you would find under the header of either fetishes or paraphilias. So I have an assignment for the board tonight. It involves a simple web search, and the web search is list of sexual paraphilias. I'm going to spell that Paraphilias. Now, there's a guy in India, a doctor, who has identified 547 different paraphilias. And what I'd say is, and I really don't want to go into depth, some of like the more better known ones, and probably actually much less offensive than some of the other ones, would include things like voyeurism and sadism. So since these things all would actually tie into gender identity and gender expression, they're forms of sexual expression, my question would be, in the new curriculum, where does it begin? Where does it end? Which things are included, which things are excluded? I do know that this curriculum is going to have you going and teaching oral and anal sex to sixth graders, which I find highly objectionable. And I think a lot of people in faith, be they Jewish, Muslim, or Christian, would also find that objectionable. And I just couldn't help watching, as I said, listening to the presentation by Kimberly May, and hearing, and talking about, you got the top line right, and you have the bottom line right, academic excellence, workforce preparedness. But then when they got down and talking about the need to expand mental health support, and I can't help but think that this is really going to be, it's just too much to throw at kids. In fact, they're going to be undermining mental health support. And I think we've reached a point where, in hindsight, people realizing that the masking and the school closures during COVID have exacted a really terrible price in terms of mental health support. So I'm going to ask that you approach this revision, which you are not obliged to do, but with really don't just look before you leave. Just try to think about that in the fullness of this. What will this curriculum will look like? And if it's going to exclude some of the things I'm going to talk about, who's going to draw that line, and how's that line can be drawn? I think it would really behoove this district, and would really behoove this board to stay to the existing curriculum. And guys, we don't have the luxury of distractions. According to, not me, but according to the governor, Gretchen Whitmer, Michigan is now ranked 44th in the country in terms of reading attainment for fourth graders. That's a critical milestone. Michigan's getting skunked by Mississippi and Louisiana, some of the poorest states in the country, and it's not a matter of money, it's a matter of policy. So I would ask that you think about these changes in a very deliberate and thorough and thoughtful fashion before you proceed to whatever your respective decision may be. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hastings. Agenda item number 8, discussion items, Neola update, first reading, and I'm going to turn this over to Superintendent Patterson.
Thank you, President Acton. So, about quarterly, we have a policy meeting, and we had a policy meeting where 3 board members were present, and we partner with Neola. And Craig comes down and goes through and helps us to understand there are revised policies, such as the wireless communication device, which is a little bit of language change from personal communication devices. There was a sex ed revision and talks about specific language in there that everyone has had an opportunity to review. revised language on volunteers and what is a volunteer and what are some of the activities that needs to be looked into. There are new policies. One was regarding students with disabilities, diabetes, and that we have folks that are properly trained. And the list goes on. It's quite extensive. We spend hours asking questions, going through, reviewing, but basically understanding things that are changing every day, litigation that's changing every day that helps to inform us, and that's where Neola is a good partner. One of the replacement policies is AI, because AI continues to work its way into education and into our world. One of the areas is to make sure we have the appropriate training for staff. How we go about making purchases and the threshold has changed. So that's something that we talk about in the season of bonds and constructions and how we do business. Emergency operating procedures, special education transition, and much more. So I just gave a high level summary because, again, we could easily spend another 2 hours like we did on that particular day with Neola, but these are the recommendations that we make today as a first reading for discussion. And I'll open it up to the board at this time.
Any questions? So I have been in contact also with our Neola rep, Greg Hagen. And so I was wondering, I asked him about why they included gender identity, gender expression, and sexual orientation to this new policy. It hasn't been here before. And he said to me, this has been added to the policy, an administrative guideline based on the Elliott-Larsen Civil Rights Act requirements. Since the Elliott-Larsen Civil Rights Act is cited in our policy, it's cited in the policy, and we have to follow the law. He doesn't believe that JPS would be out of compliance if the terminology is not present in the policy. So my contention is that gender expression, sexual orientation, gender identity are really subjective. So we need to, this is a school, and I just think we need to teach medically accurate information. And this is more subjective. It's how you feel inside. It's not medically accurate. So that's my contention with some of this. I think that, we just have to, we represent all the district, and this is something that we don't have to take this terminology in the revisions.
Just to clarify, this policy is not curriculum. So the curriculum is totally separate. The content of what is taught is curriculum. It's not this policy. And you can remove those words from here if you want, but I mean, you can say you're going to teach math, or you can say you're going to teach addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. You're teaching the same thing. So if you want to get into curriculum, that's a totally different place to look at this issue. And I think that if you're wanting to take those words out of this policy in order to temper the reaction from the public, then that's not being very transparent. I think our public wants us to be transparent. They've said it over and over again. And this is the most transparent we can be, because this is not curriculum that we are approving or not approving.
Not a problem, and I know that everyone can opt out. So I just want to make sure that this is, if we vote on this, that parents can opt out. And I get that it's sex ed. Kids don't have to take that. I understand that. I'm just concerned that when you look in Wikipedia and all these other sources, the last I looked, there's 72 genders. So it's getting to be like opening Pandora's box. And that's all, I'm just going to bring it up to the public. So, but again, everyone gets to opt out of no one has to take sex education. There's an opt-out form on our website.
Your opposition is over gender identity and gender expression, or also sexual orientation?
More about the gender identity and expression, because I think it's subjective. I don't think it's medically accurate. Any further discussion?
So you don't have a problem with sexual orientation being included on that list?
You know, actually, I think we just need to teach sex education. So yes, I would have a problem with that too. Yes. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we will now move to discussion item 252693. SIS change, and Marcus will present on this item.
All righty, so SIS acronym stands for Student Information System. The one we utilize is called PowerSchool to manage all of our student data from enrollment, demographics, scheduling, grading, all kinds of stuff. We also use it for our required state reporting. What we found over the last several years is that costs for PowerSchools have gone up while the support levels have decreased. So we've started, looking at other systems out there, seeing, what's available, what might work for JPS. We've been looking at another one called MyStarQ, which has local support through Wayne Risa, another ISD in the state, and is also supported by Oakland schools as well, as part of a larger consortium. So again, just for discussion tonight, it's part of our process. We've been going through this for several months, more than a year actually. Part of our process is we're going to perform a site visit to another district that utilizes this, do a few more reference checks, and we'll be bringing more information back in June on whether we're going to ask to or look to move to the MyStar program or to stay with PowerSchools. So no action at this time. This is more for informational purposes tonight.
Any questions?
So do you anticipate June being presentation and discussion or also action?
So June would be more for action. This would be our discussion item. I don't have a formal presentation. If there's something that you're looking for, I can put together. Yep.
So I know through the when we were with the ISD, there was a PowerSchool team that gave our support. Is there something comparable when we moved to All Covered, or is it not there? Is it just not as good?
Nope, All Cover doesn't provide that service.
Okay, so we just
and
lost that support completely when we moved to.
we had started, and maybe Jeremy or Julie might want to chime in. We had noticed that support started to decrease before we left the
Okay.
ISD, and really, it's those are ISD employees trained by PowerSchools or went to PowerSchool training, so it's not a function that All Covered could provide potentially.
Yeah, I would just add that we built our own team, and if you were to lose a key component of that team, you have to kind of start all over because everybody kind of specializes, and PowerSchool is kind of their own entity, so they wouldn't come here, right? So you essentially have to have a person on your team become an expert there. And when we were with the ISD, we saw that person leave from that program, and we weren't able to accomplish the things that we wanted to. And the same thing took place within Jackson Public Schools. When you see a member of your team leave, you're kind of in a situation where it provides a strain on everyone else, and you're always at the liberty of having someone with that expertise or kind of specialization versus being a part of a consortium. Now, I think it takes more strain off of people on our team, and you have more of a support system in place. And also, PowerSchool is very expensive, and so everything that you want to do is an additional cost. Whereas in a new platform, it's kind of like, hey, here's the services. How can we support you? Not how can we make more money? I think is something that we're looking into.
Can I just also add on? So if What's the timeline? What are we thinking for implementation if we
So
were
if
to
we
go
do
to
move
new
forward,
SIS?
sorry, if we do
You're
move
good.
forward, this be a long, like a 12
Okay.
months, so we would go all next year still with Power School, because it is a big system. It touches everything, including parents. There's a parent app, it's how parents stay in touch, so it would be a slow, long, so 27, 28 year would be our active date.
The next item, any other discussion? We're good? Okay. Next item is 252694 bus purchase, and Marcus will talk about that also.
All right. A couple of months ago, we started talking about bus replacement schedules. We had brought up to the Finance and Facility Committee. We have about 11, I think, older propane buses, we'll call it, that are older than 10 years. I want to say around 2014, 2015 model year. And we're starting to get to the point where they're needing major repairs. Transmissions, engines, you name it. So the committee decided to look at replacing 1 to 2 buses a year, depending on budget of the district. Holland Bus has provided us pricing they currently have 6 off-lease buses that will be coming available this summer. That's typically how we've been purchasing buses at the district to help save money and also upgrade our fleet at the same time. Right now, we're interested in one. As we finalize both of our budgets, that could change to 2, but this time we're plugging in next year's budget to look at purchasing one at this time. The cost is $83,688. For a reference, a new propane bus will cost easily double that. And then I know you have the email there. These are 2024 model years, so they're pretty new with low mileage. So regardless of which one is available at the time that the board approves this, we'll be able to have a replacement bus that'll last another decade.
So are you going to choose them because of the least mileage, or I'm looking at the sheet, I'm like,
Our direction to Holland would be, I think there's 5 left out of the 6 that we were originally
Yeah.
quoted, so whichever has the lowest mileage. The rest of the specs on the bus are identical, so it doesn't make too much difference to us.
okay,
They'll all come inspected and all that good stuff.
okay. Any other deliberation questions? Okay. Agenda number 252695, Stormwater Management Resolution. Marcus will present this.
So this isn't new, but it's new for the board. It's what this is part of our stormwater permitting process. So basically to make sure that we're in compliance of state and federal regulations and how we're disposing of runoff, water runoff and things like that. Think of washing vehicles in a parking lot, you have all those chemicals that run off and eventually they find their way into the state waterways, the lakes, rivers, and things of that sort. JPS, along with other districts, have contracted with Arch Environmental, who does a lot of work with us to help manage this program. Part of the program, or part of the permitting requirements, is that there's a approved resolution from the Board of Education, just basically stating that we are in compliance with the state and regulations for water runoff. That sort of thing. They'll come and they inspect all of our drains and test water samples and all that great stuff. And they've been doing it for a few years now. Previously, I think it was just a superintendent sign off. That's changed, and now it's a board resolution is why you're seeing this now and not before. And no action tonight, so really, this is again for informational purposes. We'll bring this back again next month for formal board approval.
Any questions? So I live by Sharp Park and I ride my bike by, what do you call it, a holding pool? Or is that what it's called?
Retention pond.
Is that that part of our runoff? Yes? Okay. There's a muskrat living there with some mallard ducks and a red-winged blackbird protecting its nest. So, okay. All right. Hearing no more questions, now we are moving on to agenda item number 9, action items. 252696, approval of strategic plan, and Jeremy's going to present this item.
Okay, we heard the presentation. I'm glad, again, the Board of Education was able to come alongside this work. We voted to take on this work, and we have a finished product for the board to make a decision on. So I hope that this is a continuous process that will continue over like a 3 to 5 year cycle, and this gets us started. So that's the recommendation, that we adopt the strategic plan as presented by Kimberly May of Michigan Association of School Boards.
I make a motion to approve the strategic plan as presented.
Support.
Deliberation?
Yeah, I question, Madam President. We have the 34 slide deck in front of us all. Are we approving, we're not approving that whole deck because there's some things I've caught as errors in it. We're just approving the mission, vision, belief, and the goals.
Can you say that again? I don't have it in front of me. I'm sorry.
We are just approving the mission, vision, belief, and goals.
Oh, okay, yes. Yes, thank you, Jeremy. Any other deliberation?
So I think this summary was an excellent review of everything that we did. The work is pretty comprehensive and all of that. My only concern moving forward, so I don't have a problem with approving this stuff tonight, but my concern moving forward is how we present this to the community and on our website. So that I hope that when someone clicks on strategic plan, it goes directly to the plan with all of this information as addendum. Because for as much work as I was involved in doing this, I still had to scan lists like 2 times to find the actual plan. So I am just asking that when we do post this and present it, that the plan is the plan and the rest of this is all addendum and support. That's all.
Thank you, duly noted. So we're gonna ask Chris about that, right?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect, okay. So, hearing no more deliberation, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Agenda item 252697, resolution calling public hearing on proposed 26-27 budget, and that Marcus is going to present that.
All right, we're getting to that fun time of the year again when we talk about budgets. So every year, we're required to have a public hearing on our proposed budget prior to the board approving the budget for next year. Some things that we'll talk about include the millage rate that we'll be levying. And really, this is just a resolution authorizing us to have the hearing is all we're approving tonight. So we would recommend the adoption of the attached resolution calling for a public hearing on the 26-27 budget to be held Tuesday, June 23rd at 5:45 PM right here.
Do I have a motion?
Move to post for the public hearing at the June 23rd meeting.
Okay, support. Any deliberation? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Agenda item 252698, roof bids, and Marcus is going to present this item.
All right, so this is the first project of the 2025 bond program. We originally put bids out to replace roofs at 3 buildings, Montessori, Dibble, and Sharp Park. We'll be rebidding 2 of those buildings just to try to receive better pricing on some of those buildings. However, Montessori, and the reason that we have this for action tonight, if you've not been aware, we've had some pretty major roof leaks throughout this school year over at Montessori, so we really wanted to make sure we get that taken care of this summer. And due to timing, and also we have a partnership with the Felician Sisters who run daycare and preschool out of that building. So to minimize that impact, we put the bid out, and at this time, we are recommending the approval of the Montessori roof replacement. The construction amount is $788,330. The total dollar amount of the package is $971,454. That includes things contingencies and allowances, just as we get into the project, if something happens, we have those dollars where we can pivot and be able to take care of those. The final number will hopefully most likely be less than that 971, as we don't, wind up not needing some of that money. It'll get reallocated to other projects, as we've done in previous bond issues here in the district. So this time, again, we would recommend approval of the Montessori roof replacement package.
Do I have a motion to approve?
Make a motion to approve the Montessori roof replacement.
Any deliberation?
Could you describe the timeline? Because they,
For sure, yep. So we talked about timeline a lot because specifically with our partnership with the other side of the building there. Pending board approval tonight, I believe we're looking to start the week of June 22nd? Yes, 21st, yep. So we'd have that, the week after school gets out, we would have time to prep and get ready while the trade or the vendor is mobilizing, getting their materials, getting all set up and ready to go. We're going to be doing this project in a few different stages. So we've worked with the Felician Sisters. They're going to take a 2-week break around the 4th of July holiday. We're going to have that section of the building done while they're out, and the remainder of the JPS areas before and after. So everything will be done to the point where kids can be in the building if they're just finishing up aesthetic things by early August, assuming we have a dry, normal summer.
Any other deliberation?
Just on process, for Marcus, was the bid put out with all three of them together and then we went back to Versatile and Quality Roofing to ask them to do a pricing by building for the Montessori?
The package that went out asked for them to break their bids down by building. So the
Okay.
thought was that we might be able to award one building to one vendor and one building to the
Sure.
other to also ensure that we can meet our timelines. So we put it out as a package, but had them break out by building.
Yeah.
And then just after evaluating bids and the responses, and some of the contractors, I think, maybe misread some of the scope, we decided to rebid those other two buildings, but we felt confident with
Yeah.
the bid put out for
Just say-
Montessori.
Just for the Montessori breakout, Versatile was the only one that was shown with a base bid just for that building.
I
And this
think
is-
they were showing their
Yeah.
bid, but there should be a big tally sheet with all of them. Yep. So if you look at the very last page, there's 4 vendors listed. 2 of them did not get their bids turned in by the bid date. And then the last 2, Quality and Versatile, you can see base bid numbers. And then there's also alternates for each building. So there's different things that we would like to do if the budget's allowed for it, I guess. Does that help?
Any other deliberation? Oh, Cheryl, did you want to say something? Your mic's on.
oh, no, sorry.
Okay. Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Next item, 252699, Lenko Painting. Marcus will present this item.
All right, so we talked about this last month and also at a finance meeting before that. So as we started painting this building after the bond program, because we can't just paint corridors and classrooms with bond funds. We know if we haven't touched the room with bond projects. We're down to our last corridor or hallway floor, which is the first floor. We discussed this last month. The total price tag is $54,893. The work will be split over 2 fiscal years. They're going to start around the same time period we'll be starting the roofs. So obviously we won't be done by June 30th. So a portion of the cost will be on this year's budget and a portion on next year's budget, as we've done with the other floors. It usually winds up to be about a 40-60 split, 40% on this year, 60 on the next year. It'll just depend on, again, weather and how fast the paint dries, right? And that'll determine how fast we're able to complete it. So this time, we would recommend approval of the painting project with Lenco, who has painted the rest of this building, and we would like to stay consistent with that.
Move approval of the project with Lenco.
Any deliberation? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. The next item on the agenda is 2526-100 Banking Services RFP, and Marcus will present this item.
All right, and I know we talked about this before last month and also in our Finance Committee meeting earlier as well. If anyone's not aware, earlier this year, Comerica was bought out by Fifth Third. And, you know, we've been talking, it's always good to put bids out for banks every so often to make sure we're receiving the services and paying the appropriate fees. The district hasn't put a bid out for banking services, I believe was 2017 was the last time, last I checked. And we felt it was just the right time with any change. Fifth Third is taking over Comerica. There's going to be some level of change. We just want to ensure that we make changes once and not twice. So we put the RFP out. We had, I believe, 6 responses, and then we whittled that down to 3 finalists that the district interviewed and made follow-up reference checks to over the last week. And at this time, we have decided to leave and begin banking with Huntington. And I guess I shouldn't say begin. We already have relationships with Huntington. We do. They manage some of our building internal bank accounts. They're also the underwriters for our bond issue. Both processes went smooth, and we've had no issues with them. And so at this time, we are recommending to move the rest of our main depository accounts to Huntington.
Do I have a motion?
Move approval of moving our main depository to Huntington.
Any deliberation?
So when we got this information from the agenda, I called Marcus and asked him my questions. And I was surprised, honestly, that the recommendation was for Huntington. So a month ago when we were here, there were the 3 finalists. You had the only bank that you spoke positively of a month ago was Southern Michigan, and that they had a strong application. And you gave me your reasonings of how you went through this process, and then said that you had a list of pros and cons. And when we got the pros and cons, there's only 2 banks and not 3. So I questioned that also. And when I look at what's on here, I mean, in the application for the RFP, our primary, I'm trying to read our primary goal was the best overall value and the cost to the district. So both of these have net zero fees. So my first question is, were any of these 3 banks, were we going to come out positive with interest earnings, no fees, but maybe we might actually make money? Because both of these say 0 net.
And maybe I worded that wrong. It's net zero fees, I guess, when you take into account the combination of either earnings interest and earnings credit, and or interest earned. We earn interest on our accounts. I guess I'll back up a little bit. I mean, we've always been made money, I'll say. So I think when we bring up at our organizational meeting and we name our depository bank at that time, I think I mentioned our annual fees currently are in the $40,000 to $45,000 range. We usually offset that. We earn hundreds of thousands of dollars interest right now. So right now we're net zero, I guess, if another way to look at it.
Okay, so
It's
I missed that.
Yep, I mean, and the banks will do different things. They'll offer different rates. They'll pull those levers. They might not have an earnings credit. They might have a higher one and a lower interest rate. It's just a matter of how they get there. A couple other, and I apologize. I mean, yes, I spoke strongly of Southern Michigan. They had a strong response. The other 2 did as well. And if I didn't make that clear enough, I apologize. I guess all 3 were strong finalists. A couple of other things, I guess, that set Huntington apart. Sorry, I'm still on that because the banking change is probably the hardest one you go through, and I've never been through one, so you really want to be sure. Huntington offers direct integration with our current financial accounting software, which I've seen and used in other districts with Huntington and the same software, and it provides a lot of efficiencies as we wind up doing more with less and try to become more efficient down the road. We're also impressed with their credit card or district credit card program. And the rebates that are offered through there. It's another way to generate another small revenue stream, which all the banks offers a credit card program to some extent. We were happy with the one offered by Huntington. It's called Munis by Tyler Technologies. It's a major multinational company. They have a lot of different products, but yes.
So then even when you look at the pros and cons, the great community involvement, I'm wondering how that information was assessed because I don't see anything about that in the application. So did you go to each and ask them for this information or how did that come about?
The banks provided that in their responses to the original RFP, just as how they're good community members and partners and neighbors. I don't believe, like you said, it wasn't in the RFP ask, but I believe every bank responded with some sort of, if they do things. So maybe, I don't know if I saw anything from Comerica, so I will take that back. But no, we didn't ask for it. It was just brought to us.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then my last point would just be about diversification. So no different than your home budget and your investments and buying stocks, you try to diversify. And one of your things was that we already have a number of accounts with Huntington. So now we're going to do all Huntington. And I just question if that's the
Well,
best thing to do.
We don't have everything at Comerica right now, and the accounts we have at Huntington are for our building internal fundraising accounts, so that doesn't touch our general fund. That's just fund students raise and spend on, whatever, field trips and things like that. We do currently have investments at places outside of Comerica. We invest, I believe with Baker Tilly we have funds. MyLaf has our bond funds. We do have some. Not everything's at our main depository. Not everything will be at our main depository because you're right, we do want to diversify to a point.
Thank you.
Any other deliberation? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Oh, thank you. Motion carries. The next item on the agenda is 2526-101 TMP contract, and Marcus will present the item.
All right, so as we kick off our bond program, and we discussed this at our finance meeting as well, I provided the proposed contracts from TMP on this item and also when we get to the next item for Triangle. TMP was our architecture firm for the 2018 bond. We're happy with them and retain them to help us with the 2025 bond program as well. We have a good working relationship with them, and they have a lot of that detailed historical and background information about the district and our needs. The fees in the contract are taken directly from the bond application that was submitted to the state prior to voters voting on the bond that the board had already approved. Those costs or expenses have not changed, so the board has already seen them at some point, be it a while ago. Again, we discussed this earlier this month at the Finance and Facility meeting, so at this time, we would recommend approval of the TMP contract as presented, so we can continue moving forward with these bond projects. They have consultants they need to hire and bring aboard. We can't do that until we have a contract in place.
Do I have a motion to approve the TMP contract?
I'll make a motion to approve the TMP contract as written.
Any support? Any deliberation?
Marcus, in a couple of different areas, page 26 and 28, it says refer to Exhibit B in the contract documents. I don't see it anywhere. Unlike the
Sorry, what page was that again?
26.
Where it says, refer to Exhibit B.
Refer to Exhibit B, and it talks about like hourly billing rates, and
Yep.
then it just says rate is 0.
Yep, so so this is a placeholder. There is it's more for informational purposes, or if we get into a situation where we have to add services to the contract, there's hourly rates that they're billed against. I do have a list of that, but it's not something that affects this contract price, if that helps. Does that make sense? So if we earned $2 million extra, and so we're going to add 10 more projects, we would be talking about an additional services contract with both TMP and Triangle, because it would be larger than the scope that they bid on and proposed. We would use those hourly rates to negotiate those.
Gotcha. Okay. That makes sense. Thank you.
Any more deliberation? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Agenda item 2526-102, Triangle Contract. Marcus is going to present this item also.
All right, so prior to our bond vote, again, a couple of years ago in 2024, we put out an RFP for construction manager services, and Triangle was selected as our construction manager for this bond program. Same thing as TMP. They've presented a contract for the district to approve. Their costs, again, were also put right into the bond application that was approved by the board and at the state level. We discussed this at the finance and facility meeting as well. So at this time, we would recommend approval of the Triangle contract as presented.
Do I have a motion to approve the Triangle Contract?
Make a motion to approve the Triangle contract as written.
Any deliberation?
Same question.
I would say, but it'll be the same answer. I do have those rates I can share with you.
No more deliberation? Were you going to ask something, Derek? No? Oh, okay. Okay. Hearing no more deliberation, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Number 10, agenda item number 10, board comments.
I will say that back in December, when we talked about this strategic plan and our timeline and said we were going to have it done in 6 months, I was a little skeptical. I was not a believer, and I'm really pleasantly surprised and proud of the work that we've done, and we got it done. It was a huge job, and I thought it was quite ambitious goal, but we did it.
I'll just take the opportunity to say congrats to our grads and thank you to our team that got our grads there. Sorry, my voice is a little gone still. And also thank you to everybody that participated in the strategic planning. It was a lot of work, but it was a lot of great work, and I'm excited to see it all come to fruition.
I'll just echo some of those sentiments about the strategic plan. I don't think it's very common to walk out of an 8-hour session with some really deep conversations, feeling energized and inspired. And I think that's really a testament to the people who are involved. Very passionate people who care a lot about the students here and wanting to do the best that we can by them. And I walked out feeling very positive about the moving forward that we're going to do, and I'm very excited to see it manifest. I also want to just give a shout out to everybody in buildings right now. All the hard work you're doing with students is not going unnoticed. I know it was a heavy lift getting some of those seniors up there, big celebration, so much joy up there. But also we have a bunch of them left in school that we're trying to get them to the end, and energy is high. And so thank you for sticking out this long and for everything you are doing for every single one of those students every day. You are making a huge impact on all of those students' lives, and it does not go unnoticed. So thank you.
I'll also echo everyone's thoughts about the strategic plan and was excited to be a part of it and see the outcome and see how we put it into effect. Congrats to all of the graduates at SCMV, Pathways, J High. It was incredible to be a part of those celebrations. It really makes you proud that we had so many valedictorians and all of their creative energy and the diversity of the things that they set up there. And it's also, I'll say, really great to kind of feel the sense of community when you go out to some of these graduation parties and happen to, on a Sunday run into Superintendent Patterson at someone's random house and stuff, and know that our educators are not, powering through the end of the school year, but also showing up for their students outside of the classroom and going to those graduations to celebrate with those students, friends, and families. So thank you for that, and thank you to all of the teachers and educators that I saw at some of the parties I attended this weekend. So, and thank you to the educators. Thank you to the teachers that continue to show up in these final days and make sure that we end the year on a positive note.
So I was so honored to be able to give out diplomas at SCMV and my goodness, at the high school. And it was so heartwarming to get to see what everyone did to get these kids over the finish line, and the heart and the principles and how they spoke. And oh my gosh, I felt like I wanted to cry because it was so heartwarming. And it was really exciting. I just want to thank everybody that's involved. I mean, that we got these kids graduated, and the excitement and the joy and the parents' excitement and joy was just incredible. So I just want to thank all of the staff here at Jackson Public Schools for really doing an amazing job with these children and really shaping their lives. So thank you for that. So our next item is the calendar. So June 5th, yay, last day for students, half day. June 17th, it's 18th.
It's the 16th.
Oh, it's the 16th. Thank
Tuesday
you.
the 16th.
Tuesday the 16th. Thank you. The 16th, 100-year kickoff meeting, Jackson High School Media Center, 5:30. June 23rd, that's going to be our public hearing on the 26-27 proposed budget, and that's at 5:45 p.m., 15 minutes before the board meeting. And then our regular board meeting is immediately following that public hearing. So do I have a motion to adjourn? Support? All those in favor say aye. Aye. No. Hearing none. Meeting is adjourned. Have a great evening.